Okay, so getting back into our coverage over the X-Men, we do pick back up with Uncanny X-Men number 269. Now, this is actually a great lead up into the next crossover that we are going to talk about on this channel, which is the Extinction Agenda. Now, when it comes to Uncanny X-Men number 269, we actually pick up with Rogue going up against Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers. Now, there are some things we got to talk about as we go through today's video to kind of help you guys get a better understanding what is exactly going on in this book. And so getting into today's video, we actually pick up with Rogue. Now remember, the last time we saw Rogue was back when the X-Men were fighting against a combination of Master Mold and Nimrod. Now remember, our heroes were having a hard time with that kind of combination, a new kind of Sentinel. But the only way our heroes won was by pushing that new kind of Sentinel through the Siege Perilous. Now remember, the Siege Perilous is a very powerful item. It has the ability to give you a new life somewhere else around the world. Now sometimes you may forget about your past life, or you may remember about your past life, but you are supposed to get a new life. And so when it came to Rogue, unfortunately, she also fell through the Siege Perilous, and we had no idea what exactly happened to her until now. We see that she was just teleported back to the base of the X-Men, the same base they had in Australia in the Outback. And of course, when she arrived, she's wondering what in the world had exactly happened to her. She does know that she went through the Siege Perilous, but that's really it. Now, when Rogue arrives back into her room, well, the news channel is left on the TV, and she hears about the idea that Mystique is dead. Now remember, when it came to one of our earlier videos for Uncanny X-Men, Val Cooper was being controlled by the Shadow King, and unfortunately, while being under his control, he ordered her to go over to the home Mystique to kill her, and we saw Val Cooper shoot Mystique. Now, we're left to believe she's actually dead, but hey, we don't actually know that. But for Rogue, she's freaking out because Mystique was her adoptive mother, and she wants to make sure that it's actually true. And so you have Rogue believe that she still has her flying abilities that she had gained from Miss Marvel in the earlier parts of Marvel Comics, except when she goes out the window, well, she finds out she does not have those powers anymore, and she crash lands hard onto the ground. Except after falling on the ground, that is when she realized that she is surrounded by Reavers. Now, when it comes to Reavers, they were people who were turned to cyborgs to, hunt down mutants for Donald Pierce, the actual leader of the group. Now, when it came to the Reavers, the last few story arcs we have covered for the X-Men, they have been trying their best to hunt down the X-Men. But unfortunately, every single time they're about to kill one of our heroes off, something happens to save those different members of the X-Men. But for Rogue, it does seem like she's about to be captured by the Reavers and most likely killed off for Donald Pierce, their actual leader. But we also get reminded about Scylla Markham. Now, when it comes to Scylla, she was a private pilot that was hired by Banshee and Forge to kind of help them fly around different parts of the world to find the X-Men, who they found out was actually alive. Except when it came to Scylla, she was ordered to leave Forge and Banshee on the island. And so when she tried to fly away, her plane was shot out of the sky by the Fenris twins. And after that happened, well, we were left to believe that she had died, but she actually survived. And so when it came to Donald Pierce, he found her badly injured and said, I can give you a new body where you once again will be complete. And so he turned her into a new Reaver for his group. And so we see her going through the actual process of becoming a cyborg. But getting back over to Rogue, we see that Rogue is now surrounded by a bunch of Reavers, and most likely she is going to die here, but luckily for her, she is saved by Carol Danvers. Now, this is not the Carol Danvers you all know and love. Let me explain. You see, over the years in Marvel Comics, Rogue had touched many people, and they were able to build personas in her mind. And the strongest one was Carol Danvers. It had the ability to actually take over her body for different kinds of situations. But here's the thing, when Rogue went through the Siege Perilous, it was able to split the two into separate bodies. It gave a ghost an actual body. The real Carol Danvers, I want to say right now, is out in space with the Starjammers. I could be wrong, but either way, this is the ghost persona now having a body. Now for Rogue, she is freaking out and she wants nothing to do with this Carol Danvers. Her goal is to get the heck out of there. And so she runs over to Gateway, who apparently never left. She kisses him, take his ability to open up a portal to hopefully escape Carol Danvers. Except Carol was able to grab Rogue and they both fell through the actual portal. But after going through the portal, the ladies were once again separated. When it comes to Rogue, she had arrived in the Savage Land, but she arrived in an area where she is able to enjoy herself. She loves the idea of being in the Savage Land, but she also is wondering what happened to Carol Danvers. They both went through the portal, but apparently only Rogue had arrived here at this location. But when we jump over to Carol Danvers, we see that she had also arrived in the Savage Land, but in a different location. And when she wakes up, she's confronted by Moira McTaggart, Legion, and also Polaris. Except Polaris is a prisoner to Moira McTaggart. Now let's not forget, in the earlier parts of our coverage, different members of the X-Men teams have basically been saying that when it comes to Moira McTaggart, she has been acting different, more aggressive than usual. And this is where we find out why. Because Moira McTaggart is currently being controlled by the Shadow King. And not just her, so is Legion. And that is really huge right there, because Shadow King is a multiversal being. He has the ability to do a lot of damage in this reality. And so his goal is to take over the mind of Carol Danvers, the ghost Carol Danvers. But he realized that he might have an actual challenge when it comes to controlling her mind. Now we jump back over to Rogue, and when it comes to Rogue, she walked over to a village that she actually remembers. You see, there was a village where the X-Men were able to help restore in the middle of the Evolutionary War alongside with the High Evolutionary. Except when Rogue arrives back at that village, it's once again completely gone, and she has no idea why. But while doing that, she's then confronted by Carol Danvers, and you have the two characters once again do battle. Now, this section really does tell us what is the actual problem when it comes to Carol Danvers and Rogue, because before going through the Siege Perilous, they had shared a body with one another. But after going through the Siege Perilous, they were split into two bodies. But apparently, it also split the life energy as well that they were sharing in one body. And so because right now that life energy has been split, one of them has to die to allow the other one to survive. And when it comes to Carol Danvers, she wants to survive. She wants to live. And so her goal is to kill off Rogue before she rots away. But Rogue is able to bounce back. And you would think that Rogue would go out of her way to kill off Carol Danvers as a way to survive. But she doesn't. And the problem is, that's her downfall. Not taking the chance to get rid of Carol Danvers, because Carol gets right back up and begins to beat down Rogue once again. But luckily for Rogue, somebody saves her at the very last second. Now, Rogue was actually knocked out at the end of that battle by Carol Danvers before Carol was taken down. But once you have Rogue wake back up, she realized that she has been technically restrained to a slab of stone. But apparently she feels great again, like she did before going through the Siege Perilous. And so you didn't have somebody tell her that he had no choice. To make sure that Rogue survived, Carol Danvers had to go away. Now, she does recognize the voice, but she can't believe who it actually is until he comes out of the shadows. And when he does, well, it was Magneto. And he says, I had to do what I had to do to make sure that you survived. I got rid of Carol Danvers. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.